back on the Harley project, before you can even start stripping it down, there's the shifter was on there, the emblem needed a little screw loosened up. This is the most bizarre petcock you could even think of. And when he made a comment about 30s engineering and somebody laughed about it, this is how somebody thought of a petcock back in the day. And then it goes all the way through, and then the rod comes through here, and then this cap goes through here, and there was a little screw on top right there that holds the cover. So normally you'd have it closed, and that would shut the fuel off. Then when you end up going to ride, you take that off, and all these dried up seals in here have to be replaced. So then that would allow the fuel to come through these upper holes. And then when you turn it, and then it's sprung loaded, it lifts it up, and then you see that hole down there would be exposed, and fuel would drop in and go to the carb so you could get to the gas station. But I mean, this is a lot of stuff. Now we just got a quickie little thing. The ones that really bother you are on a crotch rocket. You see these ones that you got to be cranking with a 4-cylinder inline, and you got to pull enough vacuum so that this diaphragm opens up that lets the fuel go to the carb, and by that time your battery is dead, going and you can't. It's not like you can spray anything in there because the air cleaner box is underneath the seat and all that, unless you go to 4 individual little air cleaners. Maybe you could spray some ether around there, but that decomposes the air cleaners. But a lot of guys will rip that off and just put a regular petcock on there, because that's just a hassle. The fender got damaged when this bike went down, and that made contact with those crash bars on it. So that's got to be pounded out. They might have some kind of little mud flap or a chrome trim. There was, I think, a chrome trim you could get up in front. There's a goofy light that I think went on up in front. And it's pretty heavy. So I'll have to take these little chrome strips off. Maybe we can get new ones. But I like to have a two-tone, where this would be black and then a different color down the center. And then the gas tank would be half black and half. I've seen that now. It looks kind of cool.
Yeah, we actually have access to a paint booth now, so when we're painting this, it'll be in a booth.
That'll be a lot nicer. You guys can see the condition. This is going to take a lot to get this all back to being raw steel, and then putting primer. And get this all, this one's not dented up too bad. But just to get it smooth again is going to be a lot of work. And this is heavy too. You can understand why the guys that came back from the service wanted to chop all this weight off so they could go faster. So there's people that thought that we should just have it started up and run it in the condition that it was. And some people like it like that. It looks like an old ratty bike that you just dragged out of a barn. Well, we didn't want to work on it like that, and it needed to be torn apart anyway, so might as well clean it, paint it. We're replacing stuff with aftermarket parts, and people are like, no! But this, I could pound this out, weld it up. It wouldn't be chrome, we could paint it. But when you can just buy something that's aftermarket, whoever buys it, they can have the original part if they want to put that back on. But it's a done deal. You know, you just slap it on and there you go.
That's going to save us quite a bit of time too.
Right.
That'll be in a box that goes with the bike wherever it goes.
Yeah, this is all reinforced. And this one is a lot lighter. All it does is keep, and it's still going to leak oil. This is just a sheet metal pan and it fits over, and the oil is going to leak out. Because everything's all black, little touches of chrome here and there will really dress it up. So you can see this big device here that this is where the shifter pivots on right here. And that's where that petcock comes through here. And this is really thin.
I think when we sand it, probably about half a dozen more spots are going to come through.
So you're saying cut out patches?
I was thinking we we're going to patch it, but I guess we'll clean it up and see what we got.
All right.
Here's that oil tank. I'm just going to pass by on these fittings so I know which way they all point. Is that a dent, or is it supposed to be like
that's
that?
a dent, I think. Well, we're just looking at some wires, and if you ever have problems with your brake lights, your directionals on your motorcycle, and you got suspension, so the wheel goes up and down. When you haul some chick that weighs a little bit, sometimes the tire makes contact, and then all of a sudden you don't have a brake light, and the cops pull you over, and you've been partying. This wiring ended up being routed through here, and then you can see where the tire was rubbing it, and it goes under here. I think this trough is made for the wiring to, you know, avoid being rubbed on. So we'll try routing it differently when we do it.
Well, look at this trough extends all the way
Yeah.
to the front, to the middle of the bike.
Right. Which is a hassle too on modern bikes too. You got to sit there and try to get. I just have little tabs that you bent over and it kept the wires tight. But you put a too fat of a tire on there and just, and all of a sudden you don't have the lights.
Taking the taillight housing off, and looks like there's speaker wire on here. I think this bike was probably in rough shape before the guy that owns it now even bought it. But you can see the original wiring is still in there.
Huh. This is the old cloth wiring. The seat would be up here, and there's a hole here, and there's wires coming out, but there's a tube that goes further here, and I think the one wire for the brake lights goes where that little pivot is, and then there's a, you know, when you put on the brake, it lifts it up and it grounds it out. Well, that one wire goes back to the brake light. I did this a couple times, and we know that it's rusted out on the bottom. But if you get a look at this, you see the rust, and then see it coming out.
Oh yeah, a lot more holes now.
Oh, look at all the chunkies coming out of there. You got this big orb, I can't even get in there. I'll just go over this area that's rotted thin and see if we expose more. What I'm going to do is just take the die grinder and go in here and just, I'll go up to this weld and I'll just, you can see a little pinhole there. And I'll just keep going out until I'm getting thick metal, and then I'll stop. And then we'll make a patch that size. I'll tack the little welding rod onto it and go underneath, and when we weld it, it'll be below, you know, by the thickness of the metal. When you bond to it, you won't even know it's there. There's been plenty of person that had a body shop sandblast their freaking tanks and paint them and everything, and they put them back on their bike, and they are so happy that the ride's wearing new colors, going down the road, can't wait to show it off, and all of a sudden, bleh. So then they flip it to reserve. That gets them about another 5 miles, and all of a sudden, bleh. The screen clogs up with all this sandblasting grit. It's all inside the tanks, and you're like, why didn't you tape off the holes at least?
These fenders were hand sanded, and then they're putting a blast cabinet. Trying to keep the minimum amount of blasting on them. This was all taped off, but got in all the spots where you couldn't hand sand it. I have to clean out this, especially this oil tank, super good. You can't have that stuff going through the motor if anything got in there.